Hey guys, it's Nathan from the Kentucky Cycling YouTube channel. Welcome to the next Zoom interview in the Kentucky Cycling Connection series. I'm happy to introduce my guest today, who is the president of the Cincinnati Off Road Alliance, or CORA, who is Olivia Birkenhauer. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, great. Liv, welcome. Before we dive into questions about CORA, why don't we start by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, including how you got into cycling?
Wow. Well, I grew up out in Alexandria, Kentucky. So if I wanted to go anywhere, and I was one of 9 children, I got on a bike and rode to the fairgrounds to play ball, to go up to the dollar store, whatever. It wasn't a dollar store then, and then I really got away from it after into college. You know, I wasn't riding my bike. And gosh, I was almost, 44. I was on vacation with my family. And my younger brother, who was younger by about 12 years, said, "Hey, you want to try this mountain biking?" And we were down in North Carolina. So it was real deal, right? And I was like, "I don't know, Frank. I don't know about that." But long story short, we ended up going. I fell in love with it. I came back within a month and bought my first mountain bike.
That's incredible. So you didn't start mountain biking until your 40s.
Right. So, well, the background with that is I still at that time was actually still playing a lot of team sports. That's how I grew up, played sports in college. So I was still at that time playing basketball and softball in very competitive type leagues.
Yeah.
And really for the first probably almost 8 years of my mountain biking, it was really cross training for me for different things.
Cool. Since you're the president of the Mountain Biking Association, I'm assuming that your first cycling love is mountain biking. Do you do any other forms of cycling?
Yeah, you know what, I do, but mountain biking is my first love and will always be. I always tell people that knew me years ago that the way I loved basketball, because I played in college, played again for years, that's now mountain biking. So for me, I did have competed in cyclocross. I just have a real competitive spirit, I guess. And I love that. I love the athleticism of that, taking the bike on, off, jumping over stuff. But with mountain biking, I'm really gotten more into the endurance races in the last few years. And I do, because of that, will get out on the road during training. Last week, I was out doing hill repeats in what I call the burbs here. So lots of hills in northern Kentucky, so I can find those anywhere. So when I'm not on the mountain bike trail, I'm going to be on a trainer or out on the road. Not really road groups, just more training.
What is it that appeals to you more about mountain biking than other forms of cycling?
Oh, simple. I'm in nature. I'm down by the creek, looking down East Fork Lake, looking at the ravines. England Idlewild is one of my favorites because there's a creek there that reminds me of the creek that we used to go down the hill when we were younger and visit. And it was, I don't know what the real name was, but we called it Paradise Creek. You know, out in Alexandria when I grew up, it was only a population probably of about 1,000. So it was mostly farmland. So, you know, it's bringing me back into the nature that I so much appreciated and loved to go to when I was younger.
Cool. So a little bird told me that you're also a mountain bike instructor. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So,
okay. So can you tell me a little bit about what's involved with that?
Sure. So, you know, honestly, in 2012, again, I was late to this sport, but my life was filled with other sports and activities. I started to race. And then at that point, I was like, gosh, I should really try and learn about how do I get over these things? Because I was getting tired of getting off my bike, running over them and catching up to everybody else. So I think it was in 2013, I went to my first mountain bike clinic to learn myself so that, gosh, so I could, again, that competitive spirit, so I could get faster and compete in those races. And after that, I was like, you know, maybe I should do this. This looks pretty cool. And I really joined CORA in 2014. And at that time, we started to do some women's group rides. And then my thought was, I should really know what I'm doing if I'm going to bring these new people out. So in 2016, I went and got certified. My first one was the BICP level 1. And that was great. And my intention was really just to do group rides. But then when I came back, I was like, people were asking me to do stuff and to teach them. So in 2016, I kind of started doing some clinics and volunteering for clinics like with Brown County and with the Versailles and so forth. So in 2017, I started Got Dirt. And by the end of 2016, I had completed my BICP level 2 and also completed the PMBIA level 1. So I did it all in 1 year. And then in 2017, really started the Got Dirt. And I do a lot of small clinics and just one-on-one sessions. And I love it. Lots of kids stuff at England Idlewild. We do time trials. And I volunteer my time there to take the kids through some skills before we actually start the time trials.
So you've thrown out a couple different acronyms. One is BICP. For those who are not aware, can you tell us what that? No. Hey, that's sure. Fine. It comes with anything where you get into it. You're going to start, that. But for people who are outside of it, they're going, huh? Sure. So can you tell us what that a little bit more what that means?
The BICP is the Bike Instructor Certification Program. It originally started with IMBA, International Mountain Biking Association, but now it is its own entity, and Shams March is in charge of that, and it's a great program. PMBIA is a Professional Mountain Biking International Association, and that also is a great, I love doing both of them. I always tell people, hey, I coached and played basketball for years. It was great to always hear from different coaches, different flavors, and I really merge the two when I do my clinics and coach, and I think it's been helpful to have both. And now I have to recertify with them next year. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, thanks for taking time to explain that. And you also mentioned Got Dirt a couple of times. So tell me more about that.
I'm not real original. People say I'm witty. I say I'm corny. But one day I was doing my Strava. I'm not out getting segments at this point in my life, but I like Strava because it's almost my journal. So if you go out and you look at my Strava, you're going to see a photo every day. It doesn't matter if I'm walking the dogs, even I'm taking the photo. It's kind of that journal, and then kind of takes me back to, oh, that's right. I rode there, and then we hiked in the woods. But one day I put on, it was in the spring, 2017, whenever, and it was the first time the trails were dry. And so my Strava went, Got Dirt. And I went, hey, that's a great name. So I took that and went with it with Got Dirt mountain bike training, and then went and got the LLC. And it actually is, kind of a patented name, whatever, for me.
Okay. And so that's your business.
Yes, it's mountain bike training. And that's where I'll just put up, mostly on Facebook, but when I'm doing clinics or one-on-one sessions. This year, normally I do a lot of clinics on Saturdays and Sundays, but with COVID, I kept it to smaller groups in one-on-one, family unit, stay in your bubble type of training. So
you mentioned the Got Dirt has a Facebook presence. Do you happen to have a website or anything else like that?
I do have a website, and it is Got Dirt MTB training.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
Encourage folks to go and check that out. All right. Well, and before we turn our attention to CORA, I can't help but noticing that there's a lot of pretty bikes on that wall behind you. So can you tell me just a little bit? So those looks like 3 different mountain bikes. Is that fair? Or has one got drop bars?
Actually, one is a cyclocross bike.
So tell us about your bikes, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so the green bike is what most people know me by. That's the newest, but I've actually been riding that for about 4 or 5 years now, and that's a Yeti SB 4.5C. Anybody that knows me, my Got Dirt is green. That's my color, especially when I'm out in the woods because people can see me. And then the cyclocross bike is relatively new. It's about 2 years old, so a nice light carbon disc brakes. Finally, I have 2 more bikes in the basement. A road bike and another cyclocross bike, but
you won't catch any flack for having as many bikes as you want here.
I always tell people I'd probably break out in hives if I was down to like 1 mountain bike, so I always have 2 just in case. And then the black bike with the green on it, because there is some green on it, is a Santa Cruz 5010, but actually back then, it was when the first year it came out, it was a Santa Cruz Solo, and then they had to change the name. So
nice.
I love them both, and always looking at what's next.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. All right, so turning our attention to CORA, if it's okay with you, I'm going to share my screen and bring up your website since it's
Sure.
very well done, I'll say.
We're very proud of it. Thank you. Yeah, we have a lot of volunteer work that went behind that, board member, but also some extra gurus that know how to do all that stuff. Thank goodness, because that's not my forte.
All right, so in terms of CORA, so it stands for the Cincinnati Off Road Alliance. Can you tell me just a little bit about the history of the organization?
Well, yeah, so we've been around since 1996, and folks started it back when there were probably two trails in the greater Cincinnati area, and that would have been East Fork State Park and Tower Park. So we really have evolved over the years, just as the sport has, to encompass really natural surface trails, and not just for mountain bikers. So our name is really fitting, except for that we are also Northern Kentucky, but most folks that live in Northern Kentucky, as myself, as a lifetime, we consider ourselves in the greater Cincinnati area. Most of my early years, 20 years, I crossed the river to go to work, as most folks do around here. So we've evolved along with the sport itself. And, we even have a trail runner hiker that is on our board. She has dabbled in mountain biking, but really to encompass how do we really improve the end user experience for all trail users in the area.
Great. So how many trails does CORA maintain in the greater Cincinnati area?
If you pull the trail thing down, you'll see we actually maintained over 100 miles of trail.
That's awesome.
That's already increased because we've already added some new trail at Mount Airy, new trail at Euston Woods, since we calculated that 100 number. Looking at a couple other places that we have, as you know, and any of the folks down in Kentucky that work with trails, some of these things are planning 3 years ago. That little seed started. First, it's that conceptual. Somebody comes in and says, hey, this would make a great trail system. Like, all right, what do we need to do? Let's get a concept, let's get a plan, and let's get the fundraising piece. And then, then we get into, all right, we've got that plan, we've got all that. Now let's start construction. But what a lot of people need to understand is that started 3-4 years ago. So it takes a while to build that. But as I said, we're in the midst of adding to not only some of those trail systems, but new trail systems in the greater Cincinnati area too.
Great. So talk to me a little bit about the sort of the evolution here. What are some of the oldest trails in the area?
Really, Tower Park, which is in Kentucky, Fort Thomas, Kentucky, that actually is going through a renaissance right now. We have some new folks interested and some families. We've been working hard and probably have had 5 trail days there to, over time, the paths got very narrow and drainage issues. So we've really been working diligently to improve the drainage issues, widen the trail, and really make it more sustainable in places where it might not be. So even using some gravel in spots so that we can keep those trails open more often. That obviously will be going to red this morning because we are getting rain right now, but it has been yellow most of the week, which is great for January. The Tower was one of the original trails that the folks that started CORA really started to develop that and built that way back when. And then East Fork State Park was one of the first two. And that one I know has really gone through an evolution. When I first started riding on it in early 2000, it was like, 2.5 mile loop and totally redone to where now it's a good, 12 miles. And we're actually at this stage in the development of and bringing to the state, looking at adding another 5 miles of trail to that.
Cool. And I really am enjoying your trails page here. Can you talk to me a little about the colors? I'm seeing, I'm red, yellow, blue.
So that's a great question. And even it's funny because in most winters, you're not going to see the variation of colors on those trails. But this winter's been a little different because it's been drier and warmer. So we have had times where some of our trails were red, some were blue, because in some of the areas, we leave it up to the trail stewards and the land managers. And again, every trail system's different. Some hold water more, some drain, like Tower Park is literally on a hillside. So that drains much better. So we're able to keep that yellow a lot more often. But the blue is, hey, it's freeze thaw. So this morning, I would say it wasn't freeze thaw because we only got down to like, I don't even know if it was 32 degrees. So most of our trails right now are red. Possibly if you came back and checked the trails on Monday, they'd probably all shift to blue because we should be back into freeze thaw. And then the yellow is, hey, it's wet. It could be slick. There should be puddles. You're probably going to have to wash your bike when you get home, but you're not going to hurt the trail.
Yeah, and that's really good to know. I mean, so, I think when people are just starting into the sport, I like to think when people are going out and riding in wet conditions, it's out of ignorance and not out of open disregard. But, there's a lot of work that goes into maintaining these trails. And so, obviously optimal is if they're dry. And what does green, what do we see if a trail is green?
Yeah, green is, hey, it's dry. It's dirt. Go get it.
Right. And so your yellow is, hey, it's open, but it's wet. So, kind of, and these, are correlating like what you'd see on a stoplight, kind of colors, which is great. And then red, means, hey guys, it's not riding conditions. If you go out there, you're going to tear up the trail. And it's also, a safety issue. So for those who are not familiar, can you just explain a little bit about, newer riders may not be familiar with the concept of freeze thaw. Can you talk a little about that?
Sure. Freeze thaw is when the soil expands with that freeze thaw, so it makes it more susceptible to damage. My rule of thumb is, and I've been riding the frozen trail since 2012 because I was like, I cannot stay on that trainer that long. I've got to get out. So the rule of thumb we use is basically, it's got to be for almost 8 hours down below 28 degrees. And then once it gets around 28 and the sun's out, you're probably going to have to get off the trails because that sun really can melt that trail pretty quick. If it's cloudy, you might be able to go to 30 degrees. And then again, it also depends on how long has it been that cold. If we get, a week and 2 weeks of where it stays around that 32 degrees, well, you're going to be able to ride a little bit longer in the day. But rule of thumb is most of the time you have to be off by about 10 to 11 o'clock when it starts to thaw. Because then you really do the damage because of that expanding soil. Yeah.
Do you guys have areas where people do like night rides because of that?
We do. We haven't really been cold enough yet this year for too many night rides, but when it is, yes, there are quite a few trails that are open for night rides.
Great. All right. So I'm going to ask you a tough question. And it's kind of really unfair. So I'm going to say that up front.
All right.
This is about like asking a parent about who their favorite child is. So I'm going to ask you, out of all these trails that CORA maintains, which is your favorite?
Well, my go-to answer is whichever one I'm on that day. But
you should be a politician. That's great.
Yeah, right. But since I live in northern Kentucky, I get to Devou Park a lot, which for us has the most elevation. And I'm one of those crazy people again with the endurance stuff, so I don't mind climbing. So a lot of times I'll go there so I can climb and get in some training. It has a lot of more advanced type trails too, so I'll like that. But I also will say I'm out at England Idlewild and East Fork just as much. So I love going to different trails. I mean, I would be bored if I had to go to the same trail every day. So what I love about Cincinnati is we do have a lot of diverse trail riding experiences everywhere. I do cross the river. I've gotten to every trail we have this year even. So Houston Woods is a phenomenal trail system. It's, about an hour and 20 minutes from me. So I don't get there as much, time and traffic and all that good stuff. And Caesars Creek, again, up towards Dayton. It's kind of in the middle of Dayton and Cincinnati, but that's one of the trails that we maintain. Beautiful. You're riding along and you see the lake there. So, that's great. And then in the wintertime, Terrell Park is just about 2.5, 3 mile trail system, but it's on the Little Miami and it's pretty much sand. So it's rideable almost in the rain. So a lot of
Sorry,
times I'll go
which
there
one
in
was
the
that?
wintertime too. It's called Milford Trail.
Oh,
Sorry, it's
Milford Trail.
Milford
That's okay.
Trail. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But yeah, East Fork, mine, I
Trail
was up
Park.
at
Gotcha.
Landon Deerfield. So we have some trails that are in more in the burbs, like Landon Deerfield. Tower Park in Fort Thomas, as I said, is going through, I like to say, almost a renaissance. So I've been going there. It's only 4.5 miles from my house. I can basically ride my bike to it. And we're really trying to bring that back to a real rideable condition. And also, we talk about end user experiences, the trail user experience. And we have a lot of different mountain bikers in this community. So we have everybody from the downhill, gnarly, full face masks, want to go to Windrock Park, to our people that want some nice open flow. Let me just get some air on some tabletops. And then we have, folks that are beginners. So, what do we have for them? So we've really gone back to some of our trail systems that have eroded and that were once more beginner friendly and now have gone into that intermediate. So we've gone back to places like to East Fork. England Wild does a great job with keeping some beginner friendly trails. They're a great trail steward there, Mark, and the Boone County Parks, tremendous job supporting CORA and have first-rate trail system. So really getting back to, let's make sure we have some trail for every end user experience. The one we have a little bit of flow and a little bit of downhill, again, at Tavoo and Summit Tower. I'm looking for where's the place where we can put land to put in a Hobbs Hollow or a weed patch. So working with our community so that we can try and find something to meet those needs too.
Great. Well, since this is the Kentucky Cycling YouTube channel, I want to dig in a little bit on the south side of the Ohio River, if that's okay. And it works out since these are your local trails, so you know them well.
Sure, they are,
so I'd love to just go through and have you talk about each of the Kentucky trails and maybe utilizing the site to dig into a little more detail about each one of those.
Sure. Tower Park sits in Fort Thomas, and it was the old fort. So a lot of history there, and I'm actually just learning a lot of it myself because I've been going to the trail days and meeting with some of the folks that go way back. Mike, one of our trail stewards there, was one of the original people in '96 to help build that trail. So it's been very interesting to see, like, you can go down this gravel road that'll go all the way down the hill. Again, it sits way up on the hill. Beautiful views of the Ohio River and across into Ohio. But you'll see the old, literally called the Old Fort Supply Road, that probably at one time went from the fort up in Tower Park all the way down to across what at one time was the railroad system. Now there's a highway before you get to the railroad. So the history there is pretty cool, and you can see remnants of those old fort and those roads throughout the trails.
In terms of the site here, so talk to me a little bit about, so if I click on this download map, what's going to happen? Oh, look at this. Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, so you can see that's where, if you look at the blue at the very bottom, that's the highway down there, and right across would be, you see the Ohio River. So and then the views are fantastic, and there's an amphitheater and the history there with the fort. I mean, you have the old mess hall up in there and the armory, and then right to the left before you go down into our trails in the Old Fort Supply is actually the Army Reserve. So, if you have kids, you take them on a bike and kind of tour them back in and look at the tanks and all the other stuff in there. So it's a pretty cool park. Tower Park is a really nice little park in itself. But the trail systems, it's a little cut up. So what we are trying to do is make it a little bit more fluid for folks and put in some wayfinding. So if you want to go do a 1 mile loop, hey, here's the 1 mile, more beginner friendly. Or if you want to be out for a while, here's the 3 mile. And then here's, when you get into those switchbacks, you can look down there by Infantry Row. Those are pretty tight. So that's the gnarly stuff. And those will stay. So that's a pretty steep hill, grade a hill. So those switchbacks are pretty tight. That'll stay more advanced for the more advanced riders. And we've got some YouTubers out there that'll take you down some of those gnarly routes in a really, really steep descent. that we'll make sure we keep for them, because that's always great to have a little bit of everything in each trail. So, you know, our goal would be in most trail systems where it's possible to have that beginner experience, then that intermediate, and then that advanced, and then throw into that mix where is it applicable to be putting in some flow type trails.
Well, and I'm noticing on this map that, you know, it's mostly color coded to differentiate between the different trails. Are there resources? I mean, do you guys use like Trail Forks or MTB Project to kind of delineate like between the different ratings, whether it be beginner, intermediate, or advanced?
We do. And if you pull up some of the other trail maps, that trail map we're actually currently working on, that was designed by a Boy Scout troop, and it's not to our standards. So we're working on, you know, kind of fixing that to where it's more that type of trail system.
Gotcha.
That's Davos. Anybody that's not from here calls it Davos. It's, I don't know, it's a Northern Kentucky thing, but yeah. So those are all pretty much intermediate to advanced trails, but currently working on our trail maps so it does depict where those are. It's marked well on the actual signage at the trail.
I'm noticing here, so down here on the key, there's the trail rating. And so this little circle is beginner, the block is intermediate, and the diamond shape, which we all know well is your advantage. We're actually let's see, there's one-way downhill trail there now. We're working, literally digging on one this Sunday, if anybody wants to come join. And that it will also be a one-way trail. And also looking at the possibility of making some of the more flow type trails there into one way, like if you're familiar with Davos Park, Montague is a great downhill trail, so is Sleepy Hollow, but they are two-way right now, but how can we make those more into a one-way too? So kind of looking at options with that. Gotcha. So 12 miles of trail out there. So is that the longest of the Kentucky trails so far?
Yes. Yeah, England Idlewild is probably kind of close to that.
Yeah,
yes.
Great.
Yeah, 10 miles. So yeah, and England Idlewild is a little more cross-country flow. I was out there, I guess that was whatever last frozen trail day, early in the morning. You know, the runabout there, the yellow is really kind of more beginner friendly. And then the red we do is Buck's Lair. That's part of that, and the runabout are part of the time trial series they do there for 6 weeks, which again, I mentioned with kids, we do, some skills ahead of time, and then we get them into the time trials, get them used to that. And it's also for adults. So it's a great series, very well run by Mark and Boone County Parks.
And then you mentioned before we started recording, so there's these 3 Kentucky trails that are on the map today, but you mentioned that there's actually sort of officially 5, is that right?
Yeah, so actually, really, as we speak, we're getting ready to put up 6th Street Trails on our website, which is in Newport, Kentucky. And it is one of those parks that resides under the expressway. And wow. it will be a place where you can go when the trails are muddy, pretty much 365 days of the year. And it has a lot of jumps and tabletops and things like that. And we are currently putting in, it's probably about a half-a-mile loop of trail so that you can go around and kind of, I must say it will be sort of what the Mega Caravan was inside a little bit, but smaller.
Yeah.
So that we're actually adding that as we speak, and have getting a lot of dirt moved this weekend for that. The other one that's in the plans right now and in the planning stages and fundraising is Sargent Park, which sits really in Dayton, Kentucky, Fort Thomas, right on the edge, but it's actually a Dayton, Kentucky, which is right next to Fort Thomas. So that'll be a great addition. You'll be able to ride from park to park, from Tower down to Dayton, which will be great. And then we also have Fox Run, which is in Independence, Kentucky, so kind of closer over by England Idlewild. Okay. And that, believe it or not, years ago, I was also a golfer and played a lot of golf out there. It was an old golf course. So the City of Independence and CORA are working on fundraising and getting everything through, you know, the city, rubber stamped and all that, plan some great trails out there, and hopefully even make that. And I talked to Daniil Hill just recently about, you know, when that comes about, that could be potentially NICA. It could also potentially have some nice flow trails in it. And then also England Idlewild definitely has the potential to be a NICA trail. So looking at how we can support that effort up here in Northern Kentucky.
Great. Good things happening all around. Well, I'm
Yeah,
just looking at your homepage. I thought you had some cool little metrics here. So
projects in the works too. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to even just start with this. So, you know, I think the average, certainly the non-cyclist, and maybe not even the average road cyclist, is aware of just how many man hours go into maintaining and developing you know, single track trails. And, you know, someone who likes to get out in different parts of the state and, you know, even try to ride some things that are not maintained trail, I can tell you that you come away with a renewed appreciation for trails that are maintained. So this metric, I think, is significant. This 6,000, well, of course, I mean, I don't know when this was last updated, but you guys are tracking man hours, which is, you know, that's a lot of hours. To say.
Yeah, it is. And you know, what's really cool, if you look at the Tower Park page, you'll see we have kids from every age, and bless their heart, they might be carrying, you know, some gravel, this much gravel in their bucket, but they're helping. From, you know, myself, and, you know, it was pretty cool because I was at the Tower Park Trail Day just last week, and we had at least four folks there that were just trail runners or hikers, and they saw it on the page and they came to help. So that's where we've really evolved to get that trail running and hiking group in our fold too. But yeah, we track all of our hours. It's on the bottom of if you look at the webpage, when I give my spiel at a trail day, it's, you know, first sign the waiver, and then make sure we fill out our hours. So that's probably not even complete, because a lot of folks don't keep that up, but we try and get them to. But yeah, that's one thing our end users, we've, you know, again, it's always education, because every year we have new trail users, right? Especially this year. So educating them to, yes, we have 100 miles of trails. And because of that, sometimes that does make it a little bit more difficult in the past couple of years to keep building more trail, because that's a lot to maintain. I mean, I think Knoxville has like 75, right? And so, you know, and we are spread out. That's the beauty of it. Our mission is to have trails in most communities at some point, right? Even if it's a mile or two here and there, to get exposure for the beginner to start to have a chance to get out there. The kids to be able to ride from the paved trail to the mountain bike trail safely. The work hours, a lot of that is just maintenance, and some of it is building new trails, a mile here, a mile there, with some of our volunteers.
Great. And then you already talked about this metric, but so there's over 100 miles of trail built now. So that's an impressive metric. And so talk to me a little bit about your events that you do.
Sure. So 2 years ago, I think this will be our third year, and I don't think we have a date for it yet, but the Trailblazer Trek. So a lot of fun. Last year, it was at Davoo Park, and it was for to raise funds for Davoo. We are getting ready to do some major additions there that will be more machine built, so we needed the funds for that. We are rubber stamping that with the city, with, you know, all that. Again, that 3-year time frame, people need to understand that we raised the funds and now we're into year 2, but sometimes it'll take 3 before you're actually putting the mini excavator into the ground, the shovels in the ground, and doing the construction. So then last year we had the Trailblazers Trek, originally slated to be an in-person in March. Everybody knows that story. We moved it to September. We still weren't able to do it in person, so we did it online, and it was very successful. Kudos to all of our sponsors, to all the people that got on to the silent auction, donated money. And this year, and that one was specifically to raise funds for Mount Airy, which is also in that planning stage, almost to the construction phase. where we'll be putting mini excavators in the ground, shovels in the ground, all that. And that will be a 1 mile area loop for not only beginners, but also for adaptive cycling. So we're very proud of that and looking forward to helping in that area. And it will also be the middle of that 1 mile loop will be a mountain bike skills area. So pretty much, hopefully that will be open, the way we design it so that it'll be, drainage and year round so that if you can't get out on the trails, you can still get there and work on your skills. This year we will have it. We're still in the planning stages for our Trailblazers Trek and look forward to letting everyone know when the date will be and raising funds again for more trails.
Talk to me a little bit about your membership. How many members do you have for CORA?
Wow. You know what? People really came out this year. I got to tell you, we've got some new board members, and Sherman, who's now our vice president. This just changed in January. So Doug McClintock was the president for the last few years. I was vice president. He's termed out. He still will stay with us and work specifically on the mountain area, and I'm hoping help us with some other things, at least for a while, just for the transition. But Sherman was really in that membership committee and has done a great job working with our community and growing that. So where we usually were hung out around 250, something like that, we're over 400, maybe close to 450 members this year. So very proud of that tremendous growth over the last year.
Great. So if someone was interested in becoming part of CORA, tell me, what are sort of the benefits to being a member?
Yeah, I mean, the benefits and part of the CORA experience is generally, of course, all the information that we have there, the education piece, helping to build trails. If they want to volunteer for a trail day, we say it's on the job learning. You show up, we have the tools, can teach you how to bench cut, can teach you how to deberm trails, pop puddles, so on. And, I myself really never did much of the bench cutting until the last couple of years and showed up for our Mount Airy. And now working at Tower, we've made some reroutes and, working with that. Then the other benefit to them is to help us to raise funds to maintain those trails, but to also make those additions that all the trail users want. So really to hit that wide variety of trail experience. And, I guess, how do we give back to our community? This is our community.
Right.
Mountain biking, I mean, people, I remember when I first said I wanted to get on the board in 2014, somebody asked me why. And I was like, well, gosh, I probably ride the trails just about as much or more than anybody. And anybody that follows me is probably, yeah, she's always out. So, how do I give back? It's important to me to do that. And I think our members feel the same way. And part of it is educating them that this is here and we do need the help. And
right.
Jason Reeser is our trail development director, has really done a great job in putting together that trail projects page that really shows the why. Here's why we want to build these things. You know how much money it costs to build just a mile of trail, especially when you're talking machine built, which is, moving forward, we'd like to see everything more machine built. And also where we can, hire, trails. So we have a couple systems where they do have trail stewards that are, like Boone County Parks. What a tremendous job they've done to have somebody, Mark, who does a great job and has added trail there. Mitchell Memorial is Hamilton County Parks. They have, a hired trail steward. So, we'd like to have that in other areas. We'll always need our trail volunteers because with that 100 miles of trails, and as we look forward, we start to talk with the additions we're looking at, we're going to have 120 miles of trails. We're going to have whatever. So those volunteers are more important, but raising the funds to buy the tools, to buy gravel, to buy dirt. So really that education piece has really helped grow our membership and help them to see why we need them.
Yeah, this is great. It's great to have all this information and in terms of transparency. And then, these trails don't build themselves.
No, they do not. And, it's interesting to the education piece for our users to also, again, say, you know, we started talking about Mount Airy Skills Park 3 years ago. That's how much we've been working on it. Mm-hmm. And you know, I almost want to say, here's your life cycle of getting to a trail built. You know, so people understand way back here was the first meeting.
Yeah.
You know, that timeline. You know, it's a lot of energy. It's a lot of our hours, the CORA board, and a lot of the community members the land managers. There is a lot that goes into that before you actually see that trail, and to know those hours that you know, it takes to get to that point before you start digging the ground. Most people go, oh, they're digging. So that's the first time they really realize that, you know, oh, they're putting new trail in it, you know, at Davoo. Well, that started 3 years ago with raising those funds. And now we're working with the city to get, you know, all the I's dotted and T's crossed, and the state and all the paperwork that goes with that, so that we can now put the shovels in the ground.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me a little bit about sort of the culture of CORA. I mean, you mentioned that you're a competitive, you know, racer type person, but I imagine that you probably have a game.
We do. And I say I am, but honestly, at this point, I'm really just in it for the experience. I'm not going out to win any races. I just want to be out there and ride. Most of our members probably don't race. You know, most are there for the experience. Our best events, honestly, are our CORA group rides, of course, which we did not really get to do this year. But when you say, what's the benefit of being a CORA member? I'd say that's the biggest. We'll do a lot of group rides. We're doing the, you know, the hot dogs and, you know, drinks, whatever. We provide that after. So a lot of that camaraderie.
So tell me about a sort of a typical group ride in a non-COVID environment. So if I'm a new person and I show up, what could I expect?
Sure. So, you know, we plan out ahead of time who's all going to be there. You know, Sherman again did a great job the last couple of years with our group rides. And, you know, he'll say, Liv, can you make it? And I'll be like, yeah, I'll be there. And I generally will take the newer group out. Mm-hmm. And basically, you know, we've all, you know, because of the background I have in the certifications, I put together a ride guide, even for our people that are taking, you know, the ride leaders, telling the new people, here's kind of what this is going to look like, give them the IMBA rules of the trail if they're really new. So, and then, you know, it's going to be a 2-mile loop. This is what we're going to see. And then if anybody wants to go back out, we'll go back out again. That way we give them a chance to loop around and say, okay, I'm good. And then somebody else will take an intermediate group out, and then there might be a more advanced group. But it's a no drop. It's casual. It's, hey, this is friend raising. This is about the camaraderie. We're all like-minded. We want to be out in nature. We want to be on our bikes. We love the fitness aspect.
Yeah, that sounds great. I look forward to a time when when those things can become back part of the culture.
Yeah,
I think it really helps to build our community.
We also did just some beginner, and we also did some women's rides. So we'll get back to all that. I hope to get back to that midsummer at least. You know, who knows? But we'll see what the rollout has, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So in addition to your website, where can folks connect with CORA members or CORA as an organization to kind of know what's going on?
Sure. The website probably is best, but also our social media presence. We try to do a really great job of reaching out to our folks on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. With Facebook, that's where we'll post. Every trail page has its own Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And we usually try to feed up. We'll put our trail days on there. On their individual Facebook events will be the trail days. And then usually we'll post those up on our CORA Facebook page too. So yeah, you see we have a trail day at Davoo this week.
Great.
There's our phase 3 of trail building at Mount Airy. Has been every Sunday until we get it done, which will be this spring.
Also curious to just look at your Instagram to see some cool pics out here.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, we're community driven. We really are. So if you
Yeah.
look at the last two posts, the last one we did was for the Kentucky NICA League. So, and then the one next to it is Ohio. Yeah. So, and then that was the other one was growing our membership, trying to grow that membership. And we've had, some trailbiter Dave stepped up and posted up for us to try and get some things moving. That was our trail day at England Idlewild. At Tower Park with a mother and son. I was a little embarrassed because I think he carried heavier rocks than me. I was like, oh, don't drop it. But yeah, just a great community involvement.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here.
Sure.
So I guess I always like to ask, is there anything that I haven't asked you about already that you'd like to share with the Kentucky cycling audience?
No, I would just, say if you want to get involved, get a hold of us, however you want to get involved, and always know that you have something that you can contribute. I'm not out there, like I said, moving big, heavy rocks, and I'm not, I might get the rhino and I might last an hour sometimes too. The shoulders, a little bit, 2 shoulder surgeries, so I don't do too much of that, but you can always do something, whether it's, like I said, the kids were carrying gravel and spreading the gravel with a rake. So there are lots of volunteer opportunities with that. But if you're not somebody that wants to dig in the ground, we're always looking for people to help us with social media and so forth. And to know that we in Northern Kentucky, for you all folks down in Kentucky, I consider myself a Kentucky girl. I don't, like I said, I grew up in Alexandria. I went to school at Northern Kentucky University. And most of my fondest memories are vacation with 9 kids. You went to state park. So camping and staying so know that we are a part of the Kentucky cycling community and part of the greater Cincinnati. And like to see more things where we do work together to make the experience throughout Kentucky the best it can be.
Sounds great. Thanks again to Liv Birkenhauer from CORA for being a guest in the Kentucky Cycling Connection series. And if you enjoyed this content, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to stay tuned for more Zoom interviews in coming weeks.
And thank you, Nathan.